Today's guest is someone with a truly diverse and inspiring journey. J.R. Orenstein started his career in TV and film production, working on iconic projects like NYPD Blue and The Day After Tomorrow. He was collaborating with some of Hollywood's biggest names, but in 2003, he made a bold pivot into the insurance industry, where he's since built a thriving business. As the founder of his own insurance agency with State Farm, J.R. Orenstein turned his passion for helping others into a successful enterprise. So with that said, we're very thrilled to welcome you, J.R. Thank you for coming today.
Thanks,
and are you ready to rock and roll?
I'm ready to rock.
Let's boogie. So I like to start these things off with kind of your story, but I am particularly fascinated with the film production angle.
Yeah.
So how did you get into that? Like, how does that even happen?
Well, for one, I wasn't very good in school growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
So, math and science weren't my strong points. So, but eventually, in college, I started writing all the time, and switched from being a business major over to being an English major. So I started writing. I was writing stories all the time. I started writing scripts. And then
Wait, just like randomly or part of
just
your
for
class?
fun. So on my own, I'd be writing. I was odd. I would be writing commercial scripts. So I'd hear songs, and I'd be like, "Oh, that sounds like a soap commercial or something like that." And I would write a 30-second script for it, just for fun. So totally weird. And
I've never heard of that. That isn't the average person's idea of fun, but that's really cool.
Right. So, so I'd just hear songs, and I'd be writing scripts and all of that. Eventually, I was like, I want to I have them all in my mind. I want to make these things. So I switched over to doing communications, and then I was just in the TV studio all the time in college, and started producing things. So I got really interested. So that's when I decided, I want to do TV and film production. I didn't want to be in front of the camera. I just liked the idea of coming up with ideas, writing ideas, and just making them happen. So
sounds like someone I know.
Yeah, so so I started doing that, and when I was done with college, it's a hard business to get into. Right. So, like they say, it's not who you know. It's not what you know; it's who you know. So, everyone I spoke to, I would ask if they knew anybody, and eventually I spoke to.
You had a cousin, right?
No, and not in my case. I wish I had a cousin; would have been easier. But it was a friend's father's nephew.
Got it.
So he said, how you doing, JR? And I was like, I'm doing well. Do you know anybody in TV and film? And he goes, actually, I've got a nephew who works in television. If you want, I can give you his name and number. So I was like, yes. So I called up the guy, and I said, hey, Murphy, I was referred to you, from so-and-so, and I'm interested in doing TV and film production. And he goes, all right, well, I'm going to be on NYPD Blue next week. Do you want to get started on that? And that was it. And I was a production assistant. And at the time, NYPD Blue was a really big show. Like
right.
No one today knows it.
I mean,
no one under probably 40 knows it.
I've never watched it, but I've heard of it. And I'm under 40, just under 40.
It was a big show. So that was like, holy
What does a production assistant do?
So it's funny. There's different levels to it. But in the beginning, it was, so we would be filming on like New York City streets. And so when they're filming, right, first of all, most people don't realize that every person that's like walking by the actors, they're all actors. Like it's not like they're ever filming and like there's random people, right? So they'll take a whole block, right, to do a scene. And we're in the middle of New York City during working hours. So somebody has to stop people from walking onto set. So and on that show, that's all I was doing was they would be like, okay, we're rolling, action. And then I've got to stop New Yorkers from walking onto set. And some of them would say, F you, and they just walk through. And then you get blamed. It was New York. But eventually I got to go from gig to gig. So if you did a good enough job and then you schmooze a little bit, then, eventually you're kind of like, all right, now I'm going to be working on this Burger King commercial, and now I'm working on a Woody Allen movie, and now I got to work with Jennifer Lopez on Made in Manhattan. And
how was that? That must have been cool.
Yeah, so that was...
For me, it's like, I love Matthew McConaughey, right? So, like, I was like, did you get to meet him? Or
Wrong actor.
Wrong actor?
Yeah, he's with...
Wrong movie.
Wrong movie.
But it was a different guy, similar look.
Ray Fiennes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's it.
So it's all right.
Close enough.
So
What movie am I thinking of?
Wedding Planner.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, it's crazy that I know that. So
I don't think it is. He's the man, and that was his starting off.
I
gig.
guess you're right.
Yeah.
But that's where I found out that not all actors and actresses are the sweetest things in the world.
Yeah.
And Ralph Fiennes was awesome. J.Lo lived up to a few reputations. So
Yeah.
but
It's also hard to judge, right? Because like I was thinking the same thing earlier on, but you know, with how much they manage, I can't imagine doing what they do and being like positive and happy all the time. Sometimes you just got to get down to business.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, she wasn't loved on set. I'll tell you that. But it was a really cool experience, and you know, you're working face to face with some of the biggest names in the industry.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. But what people don't realize is, you know, the workday would start at, let's say, 4 a.m.
I've heard of that. Why do they start so early? It's to just set up everything so they're ready to go?
Yeah, there's a lot of time it takes to set up before a shot. And for every scene, they're doing it from multiple angles. Right. And so many different shots. So it takes a long time. So they're trying to fit everything within one workday. They got to start, and it's pitch black. I mean, it's 4 a.m. And then we would work, let's say, until 10 p.m. And I have to be back on set at 4 a.m. again.
How is that allowed? Like labor laws?
Well, we're not children, so there's overtime and things like that. But we did it.
And for how long at a time are you doing that? Like weeks or days?
So most of the gigs I got, because most movies, not all, but most movies, they're doing all of their indoor stuff, let's say in LA.
Yeah.
And so they would come to New York for the exterior shots. Or if they have to be in a certain place. So like for Made in Manhattan, we were doing stuff in the Waldorf Astoria. They wanted that place. They wanted that look. They didn't want to recreate that in some Hollywood studio. Yeah. But a lot of the other stuff, so I would be working on lots of different movies in a quick span. So it would just be, let's say, a couple days on a movie while we're working on all of the exterior shots or specific indoor shots that they wanted. And just be going from one to the other.
It sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting.
And it sounds really hard. Like it's like glamorous on the outside, but when you're there, it's hard work.
It's stressful. People are screaming at each other. People are crying. Like it gets crazy. I had to get, for example, I got yelled at once because I was working on The Day After Tomorrow, right? Yeah. And so there's that scene where they're...
That's Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yes.
I got something right.
Very good,
Excellent.
Yes. Dennis Quaid. And so this massive wave is coming towards everybody. They're in the streets. Yeah. And there's all the cars, and they end up running up the steps going into, I think, like the library or something like that. So my job that day was all of the extras, everyone that was in their cars, we were like on the other side of Manhattan. I had to get all of them into that location on time for the shot, right? So
how many?
They had to, I mean, there might have been 15, 20 cars, right? And they all had to follow me and take my directions to get into place. And along the way, some of them, there's red lights, they get, they don't make it, now they don't know where to go. And so now it's time to shoot, and not all the cars are there, and the director is screaming at the assistant director, and it's just going down the line, and before you know it, yes, it's my fault, and I'm getting screamed at. So it was fun, but I actually did enjoy it. I just ended up leaving the industry because when I interviewed the guys that that had the jobs I thought I wanted to have someday, and I aspired to be them, they kind of spelled it out for me what their journey was and what their lifestyle was, and the picture that they painted was not one that was really conducive with what I wanted. And they're like, oh well.
Can you go into detail about that? I'm curious.
They're like, oh, you're gonna live with your parents until you're in your mid-30s. You're never gonna see your family. You don't know where your next gig is gonna come from, so your paychecks are very, up and down. And I'm like, I want to have a family. I want to see my family. I want a steady paycheck.
It's also kind of them to tell you the truth. A lot of people aren't honest about that stuff.
Well, they weren't happy. That's the thing. They weren't happy, so they were like, we're having. I told you we're ending, let's say, at 10 p.m. We'd go out for a drink or two after, and that's where I was able to kind of make the connections. That's how I was able to go from like gig to gig, because I knew the people that were like, come with me on this one, come with me on that one. But they weren't happy with their lives, so they would vent, and they would like tell me why.
Right.
And when they spelled it out, I was like, okay, That's not. I'm going to have to cut this short because.
Yeah, and they do that, what, for 10, 15 years, and then there's a bigger payoff. They get promoted. I imagine there's some type of end game.
I mean,
for living that lifestyle.
It depends, right? There's a lot of different ways you can go. You know, for me, I wanted to produce a TV show. Right. But you could be doing, it could be film, it could be TV. We didn't even have Netflix at the time, so that wasn't.
Did you have a specific like TV show in mind at the time?
No, not yet.
Just the goal you're moving toward.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I was a peon. I was, I was the lowest level you could possibly be. So I wasn't at the point of, having ideas to share. I was gonna have to pay my dues for years before I can actually have creative influence or something like that.
It seems like that's a huge part of that industry, right? It takes years and years and years, and even if you put it, there's still no guarantee.
Yeah.
Which there isn't really in any other business, to be fair. But it's also just I feel like it's hyper competitive. Everyone, wants to be involved in that, and it's not as glamorous as it looks until you reach, and if you reach that level.
That's right. It's kind of like planning to be a professional athlete. Yeah. It's the 0.01% that you're ever seeing on the red carpet.
Yeah. It's a different life. I couldn't do it. I don't know how you did it. So let's use this as a nice segue. How did you get from that into insurance?
Well, it's a natural progression.
Yeah. So normal.
Yeah. Let's just say that my conversations as a single man got less interesting. But I pivoted to insurance. My father was in the industry, and I grew up my whole life saying there's no way in hell I would ever do insurance for a living. Just being a rebellious kid, saying I'm not going to do what my father does. I want to, have my own path. And after I said goodbye to TV and film, I took a stab at working at a recruiting company, a headhunting company, and the guy that ran it was totally corrupt. And I was like, all right, I'm out of here. So I'm like
stole your leads type thing.
More like just was not paying on commission.
Oh wow!
And it was horrible. So now I was like, all right, what do I do? The thing I thought I was going to do was over, and I tried this thing, and that didn't work. So I went to my father and said, why again do you like insurance so much? Because I couldn't think of anything more boring. And he sold me. He's like, you get to help people for a living. The better you are at it, the more money you make. It's very, you get a lot of gratification from being there and doing the right thing and having a positive effect on people's lives. So I said, all right, fine. I'll work for you. I'll give you 6 months minimum to see if it's something I can do, if I like it. No hard feelings otherwise. And I went to work for him to learn the business, and I did really well. Actually,
this was what, 13 years ago?
No. This is like 20 years ago.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, so I went over, that was around 2003, 2004. So I learned the business, learned everything I needed to go, and then I went to State Farm and said, I'd like to open up my own agency now that I've learned how to do this. My sales are good. I know I've learned how to manage. I've learned how to do marketing.
So before you continue, JR, because it takes cojones to do that after like 2-3 years. Like, what gave you the confidence to even be like, I want to run my own shop now?
I think that, I sales helped, right? So I knew my sales were good. I was already taking a leadership position within the office.
Okay.
I had a great mentor, my father, to give me some inside information as to, how to run an insurance office. Yeah. So, but with that said, I was 27 years old. I was still a little scared. Yeah. I can't lie. Like, it was still intimidating because at that point, the only person I had to be responsible for was myself. Yeah. And so at, 5 o'clock on a Friday, I was on the 5:09 train into the city, partying all weekend, come back, and just come back, do my job, and, crush it 9 to 5.
Good times.
Those were good times. But now the idea of hiring people and being responsible for their well-being and supporting families as a 27-year-old, it was daunting for sure. So I was a little scared, but it was what I went into it for. I was never going to be working. The plan was not to work for my father. It was never to partner, or it was always to start my own. Yeah. So that was the way to do it. So I went to the company and I presented them with the business plan, saying, hey, here's a town where the agent that's there is not producing very much. Maybe I can go in there and clean up. And that was in a town I won't disclose.
That's what I was going to ask. I'm glad you said that. Yeah.
I don't want to be offensive to that agent. He's still around. But and so they said, sure, we'll hear you out. And I presented a business plan, which I can't tell you how many hours I put into creating that plan, talking to myself in the mirror for my presentation,
practice,
right?
Yeah.
And so I set up the meeting. I go to pitch it, and I sit down, and the first thing they say to me is, J.R., we've got good news and bad news. Bad news is that town that you want to do, you want to have an agency, it's never going to happen.
Okay.
And I was like, what? And they're like, the good news is we do want to tell you about an opening in Great Neck.
Ah, yeah.
And so they already knew my numbers. They knew my background. So it wasn't like I was going in there as a stranger. So they said, look at Great Neck, do a new business plan, and then consider going for it. And so,
J.R., quick question. Your office, it's on Middle Neck Road?
Yeah, South Middle Neck. So
Is it on, it's on the corner?
Yep.
My dentist is 2 doors down from you.
Oh, that's
yeah, but so I just realized that now. I'm like, how did I not realize this before we talked? But I'm sorry, continue.
That's right, yeah, a lot of dentists there. My dentist is right
Dr. Kim, she's wonderful. Yeah. Now I'm going to tell her I plugged you in on the podcast. I want free. She already gives me a great deal. I'm not going to do that. But yeah, sorry, Jay, I'll continue, please.
It's all good. Where was I?
How you opened the office in Great Neck.
Yeah. So they said, consider Great Neck, come up with a business plan, and think about applying for that. So I adjusted my plan and went up against like 15 other applicants,
Nice.
most of which were older than me. But I was doing well as
the numbers don't lie, baby.
Numbers don't lie. So I was able to say, hey, here's what I've done, and here's what I'll do, and they were sold. So they said, you're the man. And I started 6 months later, opened it up, had to find my location, renovate, and hire some real adults with families, and I had to take on that. I had to take out a line of credit just to pay them because I didn't have the money to.
I've heard of that before, but I have actually several questions. I want to start off with what you just said. How did grown adults with families feel about working for a 27-year-old kid? Was that an issue, and how did you handle that?
I thought that might be an issue.
Yeah.
And you know what? Who knows what they were thinking, but no one ever showed any sort of disrespect. I think that I was able, over the course of an interview, show them that I was deserving of it. I knew what I was talking about, and was able to project enough confidence to them that they had faith that I would pay them.
Yeah. And to be fair, JR, you had quite a lot of like life and business experience before that point anyway. So what you're saying truly doesn't shock me. And then it goes back to what we said a couple minutes ago, like the numbers don't lie. Like you wouldn't be in this position if you didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
So they got on board quickly. Another question, it's a fairly corny question, but I am genuinely curious, is how your previous experience in the film industry, it's a two-part question, translated to opening your business, all that fun stuff, and then how did you use it, or even if you have used it, for making your own content? Because your content's pretty cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So I would say the background, I can't see that it had any influence on me getting the agency or even how I conducted business for a bunch of years, because social media didn't even exist yet.
Right.
I opened
Good
up
point.
in 2007. The iPhone did not even exist yet.
Yes. Those were BlackBerry times.
BlackBerry times, yeah. So it wasn't until, Instagram was turning into a tool where business was being done, that all of a sudden I realized, wait a minute, I may have a skill set here that I can apply. Yeah. And really, there were no insurance agents, at least no known insurance agents that were on Instagram. Nobody was talking about insurance. Plenty of realtors, plenty of realtors. The realtors were really the ones that were coming out of the gate.
What year was this?
Let's say 2000, maybe 18, 19, maybe, yeah, around there, I'd say.
Yeah,
right.
sounds about
and
right.
at that time, it was like every realtor was putting out, a picture of the house saying just listed.
Yeah.
Right.
They still do
or
that.
just closed. Still do that. But at that point, like that was it. It was before even like videos and everything. Really
Yeah, it
started
wasn't
coming
like a
out,
thing.
right? And so I started to see, all the realtors putting on their content, and I was building up my network a little bit. And then I said, you know what, I can write scripts. I can start doing this. And like everyone else who does content, you've got to take that leap of faith.
Yes.
Right. You got to say, all right, I might be humiliating myself. I might stink. I might be made fun of. People are going to judge me. All those thoughts that can naturally go into your head. And then you got to say, screw them all. And, believe in yourself and not care what anyone else has to say. And you just take the leap.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, how did you feel when you finally did it? Like, basically you built it up in your head, and was it nearly as scary when you posted it with your reactions even close to what you, right?
No,
it's not reality.
No, you rip the Band-Aid off and you're like, wow, actually all I got was positive reactions and people saying that was cool, do more of that.
Yeah.
And once I got that feedback, I was like, all right, this is great. This is great. And before you know it, I was getting flooded with DMs of strangers saying, I love your stuff. Can you help my client? So it worked. And then, so I was doing stuff completely on my own in the beginning. And then I brought on an amazing videographer who helped me with the camera work and the editing.
Did you do any directing on your side from the experience? Did it translate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
So I wrote every word of every script.
Oh, wow.
And in many cases would say, well, this is how I want the setup to be, and this is the angle and all of that. And but it was definitely some creativity going back and forth. But every week I would, and this was before ChatGPT even came out, so I couldn't have any help with writing anything. But it was every week I'd just say, all right, I'm going to come up with 5 scripts. And I would do 4 educational scripts and come up with 1 humorous skit, some sort of, something that's funny. Most of the time had some sort of insurance angle or something that's happening in my office. And that was just to grab attention, get some, additional views and likes, and kind of show a non-professional side, right? And it allowed me to kind of tap into what I did when I was in college, and and being able to be creative and produce things.
It's fun.
And it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun to do.
Yeah.
Right. It's like you let out, like you said, like your creative side. I don't remember exactly, but like I checked out a few of the ones that you have pinned to the top, and they're like funny and eye catching. They grab your attention really well. They're not too long.
Right.
Just like hit that sweet spot, which isn't easy to do.
Yeah.
That's it's even something that I struggle with personally, but we're working on it. We're getting there. Okay, so that's also a good segue for one of the many reasons you're here today. Let's chat about artificial intelligence. For those of you listening, JR and I are doing an event about how to use ChatGPT. Actually, you would be better at describing it than I would, JR. Let's have you describe what you're primarily going to talk about, because you are the expert on the subject matter here.
Well, I think most people at this point know what ChatGPT is.
Should.
But what I have found is most people don't know how to effectively use it.
Yeah.
And even those who are using it, they're using it in very elementary levels. They're asking it questions like they're Googling something, and they don't know how much more they can get out of it. Yeah. And they don't know how there's so many tools within it to customize the experience, to get it to...
I will give you an example of this, JR, actually. Me. So I've been using ChatGPT for a while, but more aggressively in the past 6-7 weeks, where I'm using it daily. And, so like after a few weeks, I finally started doing, separate projects and chats within the projects.
Great.
And then I'm on the phone with our mutual friend, Mark Metzler, last night. What's up, Marky? And he educates me as like, bro, you can build custom separate GPTs, like go to the top right of the screen.
That's right.
And I was like, what? Like, well, I felt stupid. I was like, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
So even if you think, because like for the past 6-7 weeks, I'm like, I'm crushing this stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much more you can do. So try and, if you don't mind, JR, try and get like very granular with it. Like how deep are we going to go with it, and how has it changed your life, and how can it help other people, including myself, realtors, grow their business?
Yeah. Well, I use it every day.
Yeah.
I've taken courses on how to use it to educate myself on it. Yeah. I watch YouTube videos to learn more about it and to find out what are the newest tools coming out on a regular basis, because it's a very fast moving industry and tool, and if you don't start now to build some foundational knowledge, you're going to get left behind. It's going to get too complicated. So I try to stay on top of it. When we have the course, I want to start off with the basics, teaching everything from how to properly prompt. What is a prompt? Right? Most people don't even know what that word means. So, how are you asking ChatGPT what you want to get out of it, right? And what are the effective ways to get what you want, right? How do you customize the experience?
Can you give us a couple of those, just a little sprinkle? Like, what's an effective way to structure a prompt from your perspective, JR?
Sure. So for one thing, you want to tell ChatGPT what their role is, right? So if you are asking about, let's say, marketing, right, you have to tell ChatGPT, right, you are a marketing guru, right? You are, right?
Okay.
Or even better would be, let's say that you're taking a famous author, right, or someone who's just known for being an incredible marketer, and you're saying, okay, you are this person, right? You're going to be referencing these books, these techniques to advise me on this, right? That's a general.
That's pretty
way.
Awesome.
And you can get way more specific with building out and creating a custom AI, a GPT that is specific to what type of marketing advice and planning do you want to get, and you can have it be custom to what all of your goals are, what your target market is, what your brand is, all of that stuff. So you can get really, really detailed, and you can also build into ChatGPT a memory, so it already knows everything about you. So it's building that context, and there's places that you can go to within ChatGPT so that you can essentially tell it everything you want, and without having to prompt it and say it again, it will take that information and build that into the context. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, so we're going to learn about how to properly prompt. We're going to learn how to use the voice mode. So ChatGPT, if you have a premium plan, which is only $20 a month, which is worth every penny, would be worth $100 if you ask me. But we're going to learn how to interact with that, what that capacity is, whether that's role playing.
Yeah.
Right.
It's really interesting. So the part of ChatGPT that I have found particularly fascinating is the reduction in time to get tasks accomplished. Not just like the information that you get, but more so, I've been watching, what's the show? Are you familiar with The Rehearsal, Nathan Fielder's show?
No.
The premise behind the show is that he recreates events so people can practice them, and this way when it comes to doing it in real life, it's not as hard for someone to execute. So I was asking ChatGPT about this, not just the show itself, but how ChatGPT it can be used for it, and what it does, for me, Jay, and I'm very curious on your opinion on this, is that it lifts the cloud of things. Right? So let's say there's a task that you've been thinking about accomplishing forever, but you have no idea where to get started, how to do it, and then like even if someone tells you how to do it, you still kind of need to practice it a few times. So I haven't been using it so much for the practice part yet, but I think like what triggered this thought is when you said the role play. How, like, based on what I said, like, do you feel that it does the same thing for you? People can use it because it's got so much potential of just practicing and acquiring new skills.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not only and I've worked it. I've had my team role play with ChatGPT. So
very cool.
I've created role play partners, and then just role played with the team. Like, you don't need to role play with me directly. In fact, most of the time they don't want to role play with me. But they can role play with ChatGPT. So not only can you role play with it, but you can say, hey, you're going to be a rude New Yorker who is only concerned about what the interest rate is. Right. They don't want you to get paid, and they don't, and be really tough and give me like 5 objections. Don't buy from me unless XYZ. Like, you can give all of the instructions of what you want them to be.
I'm going to do that, by the way. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
That's great.
And now, and then say, all right, let's get started. And oh, by the way, you can also say, when we're done, I want you to give me full analysis of how I did, where I could have done better, what was great, what was horrible. And you can also say, judge me as if you are this sales guru. So maybe there's someone, or let's say that you want to practice your negotiation techniques, and you're like, all right, you are Chris Voss, right?
Yeah.
And now we're going to practice negotiation, and I want to make sure that I'm using his philosophy, his principles, all right? We're going to negotiate something, and then I want you to analyze me based on those principles.
Very cool.
Right? So, or if you talked about before, you talked about having projects and things that you want to get done. So, a lot of people have ideas of things that they want to do, and they never take some of those first steps. Right? And I'm one of those people, right? So you could say, all right, here's a project I have, ChatGPT, I want to do this. What I'd like from you is to take this plan. I want you to develop a step-by-step plan. I want you to turn it into little chunks, and then on a daily basis, I want you to tell me what I have to do each day to get towards that, right? So you can create a task that says, all right, that this is a project I have. Every day I want to be doing, let's say, dedicating 30 minutes towards this. So every day at 8 a.m., I want you to reach out to me and tell me what to do for that project today.
Does it do that without you opening it? Like, it can't send you notifications on your phone, right?
Yes, you can. So now, it's a task, right? So you can create a task.
You assign it I got it.
Yeah, and it will. You can even say, send me a market analysis every Monday morning at 5 a.m.
Right.
And it will do the work, and then it will send it to you. But you could also just go onto your ChatGPT and say, all right, it's Monday. I got to start my day. What do I have going for me? What do I have to do? Help me get it all done. And if you've already had this conversation previously with it about wanting to take your projects and to turn them into little pieces, it'll say, all right, here are the 5 things that you're working on. We're going to take 30 minutes today to make these phone calls towards this, and it could do all of that for you. It's just a matter of knowing the capacity and taking those steps and then automating your life.
I was just saying, JR, like, in the past, 2.5 minutes that you've been speaking, I've learned so much. This is one of the podcasts that I'm really going to have to go back and look. And given that we've gone over this in just a couple of minutes, I can't imagine what you're actually going to talk about in the course that we're going to do. I don't think we've decided whether we're breaking it down into 1, 2, 3, 4, however many, but basically however many you see fit is what we'll do. And we need to get on to organizing that. I believe we do have a date, but we haven't formally punched it in sometime around this month, but we can push it back, whatever's necessary. And I'm really, really excited because this type of, anything that improves efficiency I absolutely love. Oh, I did want to ask you something else, actually.
Yeah.
Do you feel, because I felt this, right, since using ChatGPT, it's actually changed my behavior conversationally, in good ways and in bad ways. The good way is that I'm like more focused on not just being inquisitive and curious in conversation, but extracting information from people. So that's one positive way. The second way, which is bad, is that I have far less patience, which I've kind of managed, because if I don't get an answer immediately, I'm just like, right. So is this something you've heard of, you experienced, or am I alone in this?
I think you're alone.
Okay, great.
Yeah. I don't know if it's affected how I communicate. But it has affected my expectation for, like you said, I want this information, I want this plan, I want, I'm already slightly impatient. I'm a kind of a now person, but now the
doesn't show,
right. But the expectation is that if something that ChatGPT can give to me, then I have it. It's on demand, and so it has probably made me ask more questions and maybe thought through planning more, because you've got this superpower in your hand that allows you to, I've got a million thoughts a day. Now I'm putting those thoughts right into ChatGPT and testing them out. Right. So if I've got business ideas, marketing ideas, in the past it might have been a fleeting thought.
Yeah, now you jot it down and it's out there and you can reference back to it.
Yes.
Got it. It's amazing. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up because our cameras are not cooperating, aka they are about to explode and hopefully not burn us to death. JR, thank you very much for coming on today. This is great, and I'm looking forward to getting this class done and even just selfishly improving my own efficiency in life. So thanks, man.
You got it, man.
Appreciate you.
Thanks.